gets complicated so that we can slowly come to comprehend the various partial truths that our being and becoming are constituted of. To start with, art criticism is not an exercise, as many believe, in reducing a work of art, nor is it an act of allowing it to unnaturally balloon. It is a way of responding with affect and with reason to a challenge that a visual or oral experience has coded or woven within itself. In fact, art, more than any other experience, any other set of disciplines, I would argue, pushes at the boundaries of what is articulable. And here one is reminded of Roland Barthes, who talks about how it is so completely difficult to respond to a work of art with another work of art, because not all of us are proficient in the act of producing art. And so the next best thing is to take recourse to words and to constituted images in words. Art India, the magazine that I have edited for the last 8.5 years, has been at the forefront of art critical writing for around 15 years. Founded by Sangeeta Jindal, it has prided itself on being a forum for independent thought and has explored several crucial themes over its past 60-odd issues. We have looked at issues like censorship, identity politics, humor, terror, investigated art cultures of neighbors like Pakistan and China, probed into art genres like video art, performance art, photography, amongst others. The changing urban landscape, popular culture, festivals of India, ideas of India and Asia have been looked at with some care. In other words, Art India has created, I strongly believe, a kind of a platform for artists and writers to get into a kind of a debate over issues of interpretation and appreciation. There are different slugs. I guess most of you have probably seen Art India and have had issues with Art India or have appreciated Art India. But to those who have not really leafed through it, let me just sort of spell out what the architecture of Art India is all about. There are different slugs that the matter in Art India is divided under. A theme is decided, which we then try to distribute over as many different writerly subgenres as possible. There is generally a lead essay, which lays out an argument, lead features that try to look at the theme from various places across India, mainly and often enough from across the world. There are profiles of leading art practitioners whose work speaks to the theme that is being discussed. There are interviews, panel discussions, and short and long reviews. Let me take an example of one writerly subgenre, the review. Very popular, very contested. Now, how does one actually, and this is something that I guess Girish had told me to talk about, which is look at a particular case study. How does one actually write a review? Or what does it mean when one says that one wants to review or respond to a particular show? The first thing that comes to mind is the act of setting the context. Where is the artist departing from? Has there been a progression in his or her work? Or has there been a flogging of the same old themes and images and forms? Has the artist actively continued his or her investigation into the inner and outer worlds? Or has he, most importantly, has he or her fallen prey to a kind of a manner of utterance, manner of image making? The second point, of course, is how does a work of art do justice to the language it purports to speak? In other words, how does it compare with the artist's earlier works and with other works in the same genre? The review or any other art critical generic piece gets presented in language, obviously. So the review should also, in some measure, communicate the writer's observation in a manner that provokes the reader to think, to basically agree or disagree with the vector of the argument. One of the ways in which this can happen is by employing what one might, after Geertz, in a very facetious manner called thick description. The writer can then describe works accurately and poetically, if he or she wishes to, so that his argument or his or her argument vector or vectors, the direction of his argument, gets adumbrated to begin with in the very first or second or third paras. Remember, we also have to work against space stipulation, something that Ashrafi was complaining about. Ideally, the language should be clear and cognizant of nuance. I also believe that economy of expression is absolutely essential, and when we edit in Art India, that's something that's underscored again and again. The fact that tautology can only exist as a figure of speech does no place in a magazine like Art India. If, as a writer, you feel strongly about a show, then the first question you need to ask yourself is, can I substantiate my response with the help of examples? From the works that are on show, from the works that I have seen elsewhere, from the works in the past, from the works belonging to the artist whose work is being shown, or from the works that belong to the genre that is being explored. Otherwise, as has happened in the case of several writers, unexamined impressions are passed off for critical judgment. Interestingly, Art India straddles several constituencies: students, art critics, collectors, historians, South Asianists, globalization wallahs, anthropologists, and several other categories of people read it, respond to it, engage with it. The language, therefore, very interestingly varies from piece to piece. All pieces are very tightly edited, and not always successfully, because you have writers complaining as well. But the tightrope we have to walk is essentially between registers that are journalistic on the one hand and academic on the other. Given that the magazine also has a cultural criticism swing to it, there's an accent on interdisciplinarity in the choice of themes, in the choice of writers. So if you have Arjun Appadrai writing in one issue, you have Geeta Kapoor writing in another, you have Homi Bhabha writing in one issue, you have Tapti Guha Thakur writing in another, you have GirishShahane writing in one, you have Gayatri Sinha writing in another. So you have an array of voices. And what's very interesting is that these voices have different pitches. So each thinker, each writer raises questions in his or her peculiar way, which speaks to the theme. So if you actually look at Art India issues over the years, you find that there has been a sort of a very interestingly kaleidoscopic patchwork. There are issues where lead essayists have been extraordinarily approbatory about a particular art genre. And there have been issues where writers have been very contestatory, who have contradicted received knowledge, who have raised important questions about what we consider to be accepted modes of judgment, among other things. Now, this is not to suggest that a critic is supremely infallible. There can be errors of judgment, and there are shows that have been written about that are in a way that is better than the shows actually are. So over-interpretation is almost always a lurking danger. I think my time's up, so I shall hand it over to Shamish.